Welcome back to the Loyola Left. We've got a great action-packed episode for you guys today, where we're going to talk about political language, what it means to be a liberal, what it means to be a leftist, and we'll talk about some current event issues as well as our personal political beliefs. I'm joined by my fellow hosts, Ethan Dumper and Jacob Friedman. You guys want to say hi?
Hi, I'm Jacob. I am a senior at Loyola, and I'm excited to be on the podcast for the first time.
Yeah.
And I'm Ethan. I'm back. I was here for the first episode, and I'm excited to get this one going.
Yeah, I think the thing that's sort of like that we sort of talked about a little bit is conflating the two terms liberal and leftist, because there is a clear difference, and I think that's like a major issue and something that is like appears a lot in the rhetoric of like Fox News and Donald Trump is like conflating the two. I mean, he was calling Kamala Harris a leftist, and
Yeah, a radical leftist Marxist. Like, I think that one of our goals with this podcast with the club is to kind of like make these ideas more concrete. Like, there's a lot, especially in modern political discourse, of like amorphous terms, and that's very much on purpose. It's meant to, confuse you. They don't want you to know exactly like what your opposition is, besides the fact that it's something you have to dislike. So I think if we want to talk about the term leftist, I think that one thing that's really interesting is looking at the origin of the left-right political spectrum. So that terminology began in the French Revolution with the French National Assembly. Basically, the president sat in the middle. Everyone to the left of the president wanted to essentially get rid of the king, start a republic, completely overthrow the system before it. And everyone on the right wanted to maintain the system. They were for the aristocracy. They were for, they were for feudalism, for the king. So what I think is key to remember is that this left-right that we talk about when we talk about the French Revolution is no longer, the right wing is no longer advocating for, the King Louis, right? What the right is advocating for is the same thing that the right back then was advocating for, maintaining the system. The left is the side that wants to overthrow the system, completely overhaul what, today the establishment would be capitalism.
Right.
Which is why, we want to define the left as overthrowing capitalism or anti-capitalism, because that is, kind of like the start to the opposing the king of, capitalism.
Because you think about the two political parties that exist within America, and it's like it's Democrats and it's Republicans. But even then, both of them, Trump sort of threw a wrench in this sort of ideal, but like there's both operating in sort of the same sort of understanding of the way the world works. It's both capitalism. It's both, since Carter and mainly Reagan, neoliberalism, and figuring out the best ways for how these two right-wing parties can coexist. And I think we stopped understanding the world of like actual political ideas, and it's like, oh yeah, which one will win, right? It's as if,
For sure.
as if getting Democrats in office is what's going to fix everything. I just feel like there's just like some dissonance there, because that's just not true.
Yeah, no, what's interesting is like the fact that in the broader context, like with the left and the right wings, right? America has two parties who are to the right of that center. And I think we've sort of seen like a chasing of rhetoric where people are very scared to even explore the center and then the left. Like if we look at immigration as an issue, right? In the 2000s, we were so close to like comprehensive immigration reform. And then we've lost that, right? Like you saw Kamala Harris running to the right on immigration.
Yeah.
You saw basically every Democrat has been for like a very closed border, heavier ICE funding, which is like there are conversations that can be had about that, but that's no longer truly a left-wing party the way that they have in some other countries around the world. But more importantly, like those kinds of conversations no longer exist within America the way that it's like represented to be. And so when like Fox News says like the left-wing rhetoric or extreme radical leftists start sort of taking over the country, that's just wrong, because they aren't extreme leftists. They're more moderates. But beyond that, it's also sort of like conflating what people are scared of, which is like, I guess, maybe true left-wing ideals with what Democrats are doing to like sort of, I guess, like demonize them in a way.
For sure. And not just demonize them, but make their own position kind of like seem a lot more reasonable. Because if you are really far right and you're calling someone slightly to the left of you radically far left, then you seem way more rational. When in reality, like if you look at you in a vacuum, like on like in actual scope, you are very far right. And I think that that's why this is something we want to address and why we feel that this is so dangerous. Because by making Kamala Harris a radical leftist, it makes anything to the left of her kind of like incomprehensibly left. Like that's not even like a reasonable thing to bring up in political discussion. And that's why we feel that this discussion is so important.
Yeah, I mean, talking about her as like a radical leftist when she's the one saying that she wants like the most lethal military
Exactly, yeah.
Commander-in-Chief, I will ensure America always has the strongest, most lethal fighting force in the world.
Or like not even really caring for social services. I mean, like, I don't know, the entire campaign was really ridiculous. But when it comes to that sort of thing, Jacob, where do you fall on like the amorphous political spectrum, which I think is like a really unproductive term to use, so I hate to like sort of classify that, but what do you think? What do you believe?
Yeah, I agree. I think that, you know, and this is something we've talked about previously. I think that, you know, I am no better for where I was born, for who I was born, who I was born under, what context I'm in. I'm no better than anyone else because that's not something I chose. And because of that, I think that it logically follows that I shouldn't be treated or I shouldn't live a better life than anyone else for something I didn't choose. I don't think that for any reason I, as, you know, like a white teenage boy in Los Angeles, should be treated as any better as, you know, a brown child in the global South who's being ravaged by American foreign policy. So I definitely think that I'm left in that I don't support, you know, like America going abroad, pursuing its economic interests to like, better the nation, but worsen the world, you know, like these people have rights the same way that you and I do. And I don't believe that I should benefit from being born into by like not at all merit. And I think that that is like one of the things that a lot of people don't or just like tend to ignore, right? Because we're taught that America is like the American dream and that it's like a land of opportunity and it's meritocracy. If you work hard, you can do whatever. But you can't work hard to be born to rich parents. You can't work hard to not be born in a slum. You can't work hard to not be born somewhere that's being bombed by the US military. And I think that that is like one of the main reasons that I, you know, am a leftist, because I just see what capitalism, what imperialism does to other countries. And I can't help but put myself into their shoes.
Of course. Yeah. I mean, I share all the same sentiment. And it's when I'm sort of thinking about all of these different things and I'm thinking about like, where did even my values come from? Like, why is it that I am interested in working hard? Like, why am I? And it's because I'm being put in situations where I'm being put in situations to succeed. I'm being given a lot of resources to in order to succeed. And I'm thinking about different people and I'm like, there are people who are just as capable of being in the position I am, but they're not given the same sort of great public education. They're not given the same sort of housing that I'm in. They don't live in two-parent households where I have such a supportive community and family. They're not given health. They're not people who have to worry about, who don't have to worry about healthcare. Like, I'm such a privileged way to think about that sort of thing.
For sure, yeah.
And I don't know, something else that I tend to notice when I'm talking with others about, like, back when earlier last year when things were sort of heating up with Israel and Gaza and Palestine, it's like people can't conceptualize that there are people whose entire lives are made up of just suffering and being bombed and like living and only seeing the people that they're living around as dying. And like you said, I feel like I don't think I could really live with myself if I wasn't actively trying to make others' lives the same way that I'm living, if that makes sense. Like
for sure, yeah.
I don't know if like this.
No, I mean, I mean that makes total sense. And
yeah.
The fact that like all of those things you talk about, right? Like public education, healthcare, have been characterized as radical left, has sort of become the issue with like American politics. It's the idea that like none of us can sort of express these ideals without sort of being boxed into a corner, and all of these things are seen as socialism or communism, and then associated with everything that like the right or I guess like the conservatives will sort of put that into. And so, you know, I think a lot of people would agree with the sort of statements that we're making. And I think when you go out and you say things like that, it's very easy to get people to agree with you. I would say even like, I mean, I'd hope at least like Jesse Waters would agree with the fact that like people, you know, like deserve the right to live without being bombed, like those kinds of things. And but then if you were like, great, so we should have like comprehensive, you know, reform between like what's happening in the Middle East, or we should have like comprehensive reform between what's happening in our education system or our healthcare system, all of a sudden you want to like give out handouts, and you like are like taking away from like the core like patriotism, having to like fight and pull yourself up, which is really like a mischaracterization of what America should be. It's the idea that like we can like, as the most powerful country in the world, as the most economically successful country in the world, it should really be our responsibility to help support some of these people who like either, you know, they don't have access to the same amount of resources, or just like to end inequality. Because the truth is like America, if it was to be like designed properly, could end a lot of these things, or at least put like a significant impact into them. We could sort of reduce the wealth gap. We could sort of, you know, fix a lot of the climate issues that we're having.
Of course, yeah. And it's such an actionable thing too. I think that people like all of these things, it's so easy to dismiss them as like idealistic or like kind of like hopeful dreaming, but like impractical, or like ignoring kind of like the harsh reality of the real world. That's like something that I get a lot when talking to people about politics. But if you do the math, there is so much wealth, especially in the United States. Like we are essentially the global superpower. It is such an actionable thing that a lot of people seem to, for one reason or another, like believe is like some sort of like fairy tale. And I think that one thing is that pay attention to who would not benefit, who would like, I guess, suffer from these actions. It would be those with enormous amounts of wealth, right? There's a way of kind of like redistributing wealth so that, you know, the top 1% is slightly less rich and the bottom 50% doesn't starve.
And when we say suffer, it's not like they're gonna like all of a sudden go into poverty or something like that. Like be the wealthiest people in the country.
Exactly. Yeah. Just a little bit less. Just not as much. You might not be able to buy, you know, the 30th mega yacht, but I mean, like
having things where you're able to like, I don't know, policies, even like the most trivial things, but like how these billionaires put all their money in like stocks, and there's not like ways to, I forget what it exactly is, but it's like being able to tax them on like more than just like what's in their bank account. But
wealth tax versus income, because
unrealized gains.
Exactly, unrealized.
Exactly. Yeah. I it's definitely to what you were saying. Like it's very frustrating to talk with people, and they end up just saying, "Well, it's just how the world works," and I'm like, I think that's just like the effective propaganda that like we're being given. It's like, oh, that's how the world works. You just need to operate within it, and I'm like, not really. Like we're getting so close to actual comprehensive reform. We see this type of reform.
One thing that I like always like to say to that is feudalism was just the way the world worked. It was so ingrained in people. You can look at like art, literature, everything. Feudalism was just like it was human nature. You needed a king. You couldn't have serfs just like make decisions for themselves. That's ridiculous, right? Who's going to guide them? Who's going to keep them tied? Who's going to keep them producing? And then we had capitalism, and then that, you know, you started getting like classical liberal reforms. And I think that a lot of the things that we are trying to bring to light is that capitalism, just like slavery, just like feudalism, just like mercantilism, is an economic system that existed in the past, served its purpose, but we are not at the end of history. It's not like we're the last generation to exist. We're just we're one speck. Just like there's that one person, one serf in the middle of you know, like under the English king. We are just one speck in history, and things are going to move on. And I think that what clinging on to capitalism is just clinging on to the past.
Yeah, I mean. And even then, like, that's why it's so crazy, is like, this is what like being left means. It means trying to look out for those who are the most vulnerable in society and finding comprehensive ways to make sure that capitalism can't continue to exploit the working class for their labor. And so then you think about like modern politics, and you're like, how is Kamala Harris a radical leftist? What is she doing to sort of help the working class. Like she didn't do anything, and hardly anyone is doing anything within current the political landscape to actually help the working class. And what's even more interesting is why that's such a demonized term, to be a like leftist or to like stuff like that. I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, really, it's a byproduct of certain groups, certain right-wing groups needing to control a media narrative so that they would win, because obviously it's unpopular to just keep pushing the top 1% up and everyone else down. Obviously it's unpopular to hurt our climate. Obviously it's unpopular to take away from our healthcare systems, and so you need some sort of way to demonize the other sides. You call them radical and things like that, and that's like the issue with what capitalism has enabled.
Yeah, right. And like this goes back to what you were saying earlier. You can get the average person to agree on a lot of like leftist terms or leftist politics because a lot of people believe that people shouldn't die of preventable diseases, or that the top 1% should get billions added to their wealth while people are homeless. Those are very reasonable and like common sense, if we want to use right-wing language. Those are common sense policies. But because the media has been able to associate that with the term leftist and then demonize the term leftist, once you start saying, oh, I'm a leftist, that's when you start getting pushback, even though they might agree policy-wise with everything you've said.
Yeah.
And I like it's like it's doublethink. It's like people can agree with everything you're saying, but once they hear a label that they've been taught not to like, suddenly they have to turn on you.
Yeah.
And that's what we want to bring to light.
Doublethink's a good callback, because I mean I have some opinions about Orwell's work, but even then
I know leftist club talking about Orwell, but
I know. But like, what's funny is that people think of like, oh, I wonder if the world will turn into 1984, when Orwell wrote that based on his experiences working within like British media, and like how he was silencing like actual things that were going on in order to like rewrite history. I don't know. I think that's something that we're seeing with like, or that we saw with the tariffs especially. Like it's this sort of like weird doublethink, because tariffs are not necessarily a bad thing. The way that they're being introduced and used right now, genuinely mind-numbingly horrible. But like the idea of protecting American interests and trying to get more Americans jobs, like the South of America was like decimated for like because of things like free trade and exploitation of other countries. Like places within America lost all of their jobs. We lost the union workers that were fighting for better wages. That's why our wages stagnated, because we don't have anyone fighting for like comprehensive unions to actually like get comprehensive wage reform. And now somehow tariffs are being argued as like, well, it's going to protect Americans because we're going to make it fair trade. And I'm like, well, you want free trade.
Yeah.
You also want to boost domestic manufacturing. It's insane.
Of course. Yeah. And I mean, also, if you want to go back to the doublethink, people want higher wages, but they don't want the people who fight for those wages. They don't want union workers.
Yeah.
It's incredible how people's perception of, like the media is like post-truth, right? Like it's not so much what's true anymore, more what you understand.
Right.
And you don't care if like your ideas conflict.
Yeah.
Because you're like, it's what you know.
I mean, that is what you want to understand. It's more at this point like what you want to understand. Like what, like not even.
Yeah.
Because I think some people sort of reach a point where they're like, maybe I'm wrong, but like, I can't go back now. But more importantly, like I think, well, firstly, the rise of like social media echo chambers has sort of made it like very difficult for people to sort of move out of that. I think there's an issue on both the left and the right.
Right.
But then also like people's communities, like they can like they're like, I may sort of like see merit in this argument, but me shifting away from like my core beliefs that other people around me believe, then puts that label on me that I don't want. Now I'm the leftist and I can't let that happen to me.
Right.
So I have to double down and sort of explain why that's wrong.
That's why I hate, like, you guys know those debate people on TikTok, Parker and Dean Withers. I can't stand those people. Like, how is any of that, like, I'm like, okay, either this is just like grifting for money or anything, because I see them on, like, when I'm scrolling on TikTok and I'm there on live and it's like, oh, if you support Trump, debate me right now. And I'm like, what are you doing to like support anything? Like, who do you care? You don't stand for anything.
Like, who are you? And also, like, especially like after the election, like, who are you helping? Like, if you support, regardless of how many people support Trump or not, he's president. Like, that's just like such an unproductive thing. And
for me, it's like an anti-Fox News, right? Like, if they have Fox News, we'll take Dean Withers and like,
exactly. And it's like, I mean,
Dean doesn't even really care. I think if Trump wasn't in office and it was just like some other person doing almost basically what Trump was doing, Dean would be fine with it. Because like
exactly. I mean, like, what did he say? Has he ever spoken out against Joe Biden?
he hasn't spoken about against like that's another weird thing. It's like in politics, for some reason, if you're on one side, that means you can't critique your own side. You can't
Uncritical support of whoever you're supporting. And I think that that's like such a fault. That's and it's so intentional with the two-party system. It's like you're A or you're B, or you're talking about some like crazy thing that like 0.1% of the population is like Green Party and that's it. Right? Like it's something insignificant and like not worth discussing. And like I really honestly think it's a fault of the two-party system,
right?
Because it limits the amount of points of view you're allowed to have to one or the other, and then those points of views themselves, because of corporate donors, because of like international politics, are shifting, and you have to shift with them, or else you're not gonna be able to grift. There's no money in it anymore if you're a political commentator, and if you're a person who wants to get a change made in politics, well, you're not going to have a party supporting you, so that's never going to happen.
Right.
I mean, I think this is a good segue because, like, I know me personally, sort of, I'm more like an establishment Democrat, right? Like, I sort of do appreciate a lot of the things that Biden did. I thought it was actually one of the more successful presidencies we've had. I know, like, we may all sort of agree upon that.
Well,
so it's like, what do you think are some of the criticisms of, like, Biden that you all have, or at least, like, recent, I guess, Democratic policies that sort of come out of, I guess, that group?
So we went on Kino together. We went on a trip to the Kino Border Initiative shelter in Nogales, Mexico. And one thing we did is we learned a lot about immigration and on the federal level, like how the federal government has been treating immigration. One thing we learned, and I believe this is true about Biden as well, but do you remember which president it started?
The wall?
No, I'm talking about like, well, I guess I'll just say it. The Democrats for a while have deported more people than Republicans have per term.
Clinton?
I think it was Clinton.
I think it's Clinton
that started it. Every single time a Democrat has been in office, he's deported more people than previous Republican presidents. Or like I believe it was true that Biden deported more people than Donald Trump in his first term, if I'm not mistaken. Right?
If I'm not mistaken, we can see that.
Yeah, exactly.
I'll put it on the screen if that's true.
Yeah, exactly. Hopefully we'll fact check. I know Obama did for sure.
Oh yeah, Obama did for sure.
Trump
has a Obama poster in his bedroom trying to be just like him because Obama was just didn't care. But like I mean that's definitely one of the things is that immigration reform and talking about things like not supporting. I think Biden was just mainly in it for like sure there are things everyone can agree like. Things like maybe the Chips and Science Act, yeah, sure. I mean, but when it comes to things like what Biden's sort of in it for, and it was just for like being president. Like that's why he didn't drop out of the race. All of his like he's fine with the money, he's fine with all of this stuff, but we had control of. I'm saying we, but like Democrats had control of what Republicans had now, if I'm not mistaken. Like
we had a trifecta in 2022.
Exactly.
Yeah. And we didn't get anything done.
Right.
Yeah.
Like,
well, I mean, I guess like that's, I think so I think there are two things that are interesting to me on that one. The first is like the immigration stuff. I am curious your thoughts on like the immigration bill that was bipartisan, right, between the Republicans and the Democrats, because that was probably a more conservative bill than I think a lot of us would have liked to see. And unfortunately, it was totally shot down because Trump wanted to run on immigration as an issue. But then I think what's also interesting in terms of like his presidency, like, do you guys really think he was in it for himself? Like, you didn't think he was like he thought he could be the best leader? Because I think there was a certain point where he thought he could do the most.
Biden hated Obama. He wanted he was. I think that's been pretty publicly known is that he tried running for president and then he managed to get VP out in 08 and then he was like Obama's VP and he hated and resented that. But like, so I'll talk about the immigration bill in the beginning. I don't know if you remember it, but it's what Kamala Harris's immigration policy was. It was
he tanked the bipartisan deal because he thought it would help him win an election, which goes to show Donald Trump does not care about border security. He only cares about himself. So here is my pledge to you. As president, I will bring back the border security bill that Donald Trump killed, and I will sign it into law.
Right.
Trump shot down this bipartisan bill, and we were going to work together to fix the immigration system. Well, first, no one knows what the issues with the immigration system are. That being the fact that the asylum is so hard to get and it's so hard to come into this country legally that we're forcing people to come illegally because of damage we've done in Latin America.
Right. I really quickly, I just want to emphasize that no one wants to leave their home. No one wants to leave the culture they grew up in, the people they grew up around, the places they grew up around. I like, so many people say like, oh, why wouldn't everyone just want to come to America? Because they didn't grow up in America. Think about how willing you would be to leave your home. It's not because it's the best place in the world. It's because it's a place that means the most to you.
Right.
And I think so many people feel that way about their homes.
Of course.
And people in our experience with the at the Kino immigration shelter, we spoke to a lot of migrants who were coming. Nearly, I think every single one I was speaking to was fleeing either domestic or cartel violence.
Yeah.
Or extreme poverty. And a lot of the cartel violence is caused by poverty because it's so difficult for them to make a livable income. And then the cartel, which is being supplied by the U.S., they're parading around literally with U.S. weapons, is taxing the hell out of them. So they're not able to, they literally do not make enough money to live.
Yeah. No, all valid, all true statements, and all ones that go overlooked by the fact that, like, oh yeah, just continuing to demonize immigrants, like, and undocumented immigrants as well.
I mean, to Kamala's agenda basically was, right, like, I have this bipartisan bill.
Sorry.
Yeah, right. No, I'm sorry.
No.
It's just, that's a good point.
It's such an important thing to mention, like the fact that the misinformation that goes around with immigration system. But what that bill was, it was just like a word. I was like looking at it, and like I remember specifically researching. I was like, what is this bill that she's talking about, that she's parading around? And maybe I'll show a clip of her even talking about it. But it was like part of a Ukrainian funding bill.
Right.
And it wasn't even very focused on immigration. What it did do was, from what I understand, and I'll definitely fact check this and put the text up on the screen, but made it more difficult to come into the country through asylum, and it cut a lot of different things. It also funded the wall. Again, like all these sort of bipartisan things, which when you have two right-wing parties within America, isn't accomplishing the reform that needs to be done. What needs to be done? You make it easier to get into this country, you make asylum more accessible and more all-encompassing, and you make sure that we have the infrastructure with judges and all this different things to handle it. And you forget the wall. Because if the entire point is having people who you want, is knowing who's coming into your country, the best way to do that is make it as easy as possible to apply and get into the country. Because all these people are here, they're not committing the crimes that you're talking about anyways. Might as well know who they are and like what's going on, so that they can have like workers' rights, so that they can apply for healthcare, so that they can further pay taxes, which they already pay the most taxes by person.
The point about workers' rights, like this is something that a lot of conservatives or people that are against immigration talk about. Like the immigrants are coming here to steal our jobs, right? Well, if they are allowed to come in through the proper processes, because we have a comprehensive immigration system, they would be able to be documented, they would be able to have proper rights, and they wouldn't be able to undercut these workers, because they're going to be paid just as much as you are, so it's going to be the same competition.
And they will be American is like the very clear thing. And I think it sort of speaks to the underlying part, is like, if they are then American, you still have an issue with them for some reason taking jobs that an American should have. So is it really is it really the fact that they're not American, or is it the fact that they don't look like what you want an American to look like?
Yeah, I think that. Go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna add, like, if you like ever like watch those like Jubilee clips of people who are like debating immigration, and they're always like, well, my parents are immigrants, but that's okay because, and they don't say it, but it's because they were white, and then but they don't want people coming in from like the global south or anywhere besides basically Europe. Or but yeah, I mean, go ahead.
Yeah, no, that's exactly what I was going to say. Like, it's in kind of like incongruent to have two statements in your head, that we should not be letting people in, and the people who come in should be legal, because then you just don't want people in.
Right.
You can't pretend and say, oh, I just have a problem with the people who are coming in without documentation or with not going through the proper processes, while at the same time shutting down every opportunity to expand those processes, to make those to make sure that people have the opportunity to, because then you're pretty much forcing them, because people are with quite literally their lives at stake, moving to a completely different country that they know nothing about.
Yeah.
And you are shutting down every opportunity they have to do it. And it's not something that they would do willingly. So I just think that that's like one of the things we want to point out, is just like the hypocrisy of holding those two things congruently.
Of course.
Which so many people who are against immigration do. It really, it kind of like implies some sort of like racism or other kind of like, you know, like other ideology, because clearly that those can't be the only two things you believe, because they don't make sense together.
I think, just to speak, like, immigration is one of the few things that like thinking about like how much power and how many things the Republicans are getting done now. And it's even more drastic to realize Democrats were in the same situation. And we didn't see anything to really address healthcare. We didn't see anything to really address workers' rights. We didn't see anything to address the minimum wage. We didn't see so many reforms that need to be done, that without them, people are dying and people are struggling within American society. And we can maybe do a full video on like
Specific failures.
failures that like Biden did and he didn't like achieve. And sure, like Biden wasn't horrible. Like, I mean, some of the things like
Build Back Better and the CHIPS Act and
CHIPS
the
Act,
Infrastructure or Inflation Reduction Act.
I mean, I'm a fan of Afghanistan, like him pulling out.
Of course.
Yeah.
And I think that like this is kind of like what we were talking earlier about, like how in kind of like modern political discourse, being part of a political party means uncritical support. I think that if we had one goal for this club, like one single goal, it would be just to bring critical conversation, critical thought. Just look at what you're being told, who's telling you, why they would be telling you these things. Why, instead of just taking things and believing them or reaffirming the things you already believe. Like, just look, because even though we are speaking negatively about the Democratic Party on the large part, we also support certain things that Biden did. And I think that's like such an important thing to focus on. We're not just anti everything establishment.
Of course.
We are like, we have principles, and that's what we are. We hope that we can bring this back into political.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure you guys would vote for Biden 100 times over Trump.
Of course, yeah, and that's like what it comes to. And it's like, it's the reason why like we are critical is because the Democrats are supposed to be the ones that are fighting this evil force that's in the current office, in the current administration.
Right.
They're the ones who are supposed to shut down that Donald Trump is doing right now. And so I want my the people that are fighting for me to fight for me. Like, I don't think that's such a crazy thing. And I need them, like, without pressure with the Democrats, they'll just continue getting the money from donors, and they'll continue losing because they're fine with it, because no matter what.
I think with especially contemporary online political discourse, like especially on the reason we talk about the Democrats is because they're the ones who are telling us that they're for us.
Right.
They're the ones who are telling us to trust them, and they're betraying that trust every single time. That's why we want to critique the Democrats. That's why we want to pressure the Democrats, because the Republicans, they're so open about their goals. It's the Democrats that are telling us one thing and then acting a different way.
We are like, we should be building the Democrats to be what we want it to be in the future, to fight for us in the future, to be able to vote for things that we think are going to save the lives of the people that live in this country and our fellow Americans. And like, I don't know, I just feel that sort of when it comes to criticizing, I feel like maybe we should do something talking about specifically how much, what specifically Donald Trump is doing that's so harmful. Because like, people villainize him and people talk about him like in the sense that, oh yeah, Donald Trump's evil, but we need to be able to point to exactly what he's doing is so harmful and tangibly say, this is evil. Here's what he's doing wrong that's hurting so many
entire lives. Yeah.
Do we want to shift to the second half of the show a little bit here and talk about?
I think it's a pretty good segue.
Yeah,
like with what we were just talking about.
So right now I'll roll the clip. It's of Kamala Harris talking on the Rachel Maddow show about her current book and why she couldn't have Pete Buttigieg as her VP, and instead had the progressive Tim Walz, who, I mean, I was a fan of. I liked Tim Walz before he got like put the muzzle on him and he couldn't talk about anything like important. But yeah, we'll play that clip right now.
You say in the book really bluntly that your personal first choice for your running mate would have been Pete Buttigieg, and you praise him effusively. You say he would have been an ideal partner if I were a straight man. And you say effectively that demographically it was too much to ask of the American people to ask them to elect you with him as your running mate. I wonder a little bit. It's hard to hear with you running as, you're the first woman elected vice president. You're a black woman and a South Asian woman elected to that high office, very nearly elected president. To say that he couldn't be on the ticket effectively because he was gay, it's hard to hear.
No, that's not what I said. That he couldn't be on the ticket because he is gay. My point, as I write in the book, is that I was clear that in 107 days, in one of the most hotly contested elections for President of the United States, against someone like Donald Trump, who knows no floor, to be a black woman running for President of the United States, and as a vice presidential running mate, a gay man, with the stakes being so high, it made me very sad, but I also realized it would be a real risk. No matter how, I've been an advocate and an ally of the LGBT community my entire life. So it wasn't about any prejudice on my part, but
that
we had such a short period of time, and the stakes were so high. I think Pete is a phenomenal public servant, and I think America is and would be ready for that.
Yeah, I don't know if, wait, to me it sounded like she said, it's not that he can't be there because he's gay. It's that he is gay, and so he can't be there, so he can't be on the ticket, and it's like...
So that just angers me. Like she's basically underestimating, like, okay,
it's insulting, right?
It's insulting to think that, like, the implication here is that the reason why she lost isn't because that she wasn't looking out for Americans. It wasn't that her immigration policy sucked. It wasn't that she was moving right on every single issue. It wasn't that she was focusing on all the wrong things. It wasn't that her media team was doing a horrible job of trying to counteract what Trump was saying. It's simply that she couldn't win because she wouldn't have been able to win with a gay man on her ticket and within America, because it was asking too much of them. And as a black woman, she couldn't do that. I'm not saying that people didn't vote with her because she was a black woman. I'm saying she could have won in spite of that. Pete Buttigieg is great, and he could have won in spite of those things. Because when you hear these policies and what people are saying, and it's just like Trump in 2016. When someone hears that their people are going to look out for them, and they're going to, and even Trump in this election, that he's going to make grocery prices lower, and he's going to make sure that your life is better, people are more receptive to that than anything else. Obama won as a black man, and because he was basically able to just tell people in the most clear way that I'm here for you.
Exactly. It's so much of, especially an election, is rhetoric. Trump wins not because he does anything. He's a billionaire who says he's anti-establishment. Like, that, in what world does that make sense?
Right.
The reason he wins is because he says what people want to hear. And I think that Kamala Harris, that's exactly the reason she lost, because she said things people didn't want to hear. Everyone was fed up with the Biden administration, and she kept saying about how she was going to be a continuation of this.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, that clip is hard for two reasons. One, because it's sad, right? Like the idea that like we couldn't pick Pete simply because he's gay. It truly is sort of taking him for the person he is and making him just this one identifying factor.
For sure. Yeah.
Oh my
so
God.
like
Yeah.
yeah, of course.
And but the second thing is that, unfortunately, she also like might not be wrong in this case. Like, do you think that like they could have won together on a ticket? Like, God, as terrible as it is, I don't know if certain people in swing states would have voted that way.
I
can't see certain communities doing that.
I think, not to say that you're doing what I'm telling you, but like distilling Pete to a gay man, and I'm not saying Pete Buttigieg was the guy. Like, I think the implication is like, oh, like what we're saying is like, oh, if she had Pete Buttigieg, she would have won. No, but for anyone on the ticket, I don't like really care who it is. If you are there and you have the rhetoric and you're able to say, and you have the policies,
Especially if you have policy. I mean,
if you have the policies, if you have the policy specifically to counteract Trump and say, here's what I'm going to do. Like something I always say is like, make the Republicans fight against Medicare for all. Like, have them explain why comprehensive like healthcare, why that's such a bad idea.
Isn't there such a laughable clip of, I forget who it was, saying it was a Republican politician, and he was saying like, they're trying to make school lunches free, they're trying to feed the children. Oh yeah, like it is scaring people.
Yeah.
And it's so laughable on social media because like, this is in no way bad, like you're just saying it in a scary time.
Yeah, I mean, there was the Republican town hall where the guy was like, do we really think that everyone should get like healthcare? And everyone was like, yes. And he was like, no, you're wrong.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Everybody still wants that kind of thing. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, I just think Kamala Harris, she could have won. Her policies were bad. Her rhetoric was bad. It was 107 days. I get it. But there was more that she could have done. And saying that the implication being that she only like her policies were good enough if it was just some other person that could have done it.
Right.
Like,
and I think that one thing we have to consider with her comment in that clip is, what is the influence of it, like on the material reality? What she said to the DNC, to establishment Democrats, is that she lost not because of her policy, not because her policy was not popular, but because she was a black woman, and she would have had even worse chances with a gay man.
Yeah.
Why in 2028 would the Democrats run a black person, a woman, or a gay person, right?
Yeah.
You have to understand that all she's doing is making it less inclusive, less progressive for the next election. Because all the Democrats here are, she lost because she's a black woman, why would we run a black woman?
Exactly.
Completely shifting the focus away from the problematic policy.
And then we're gonna lose people. I don't understand why me being a minority or anyone being their gender, sexual orientation, sexuality, anything, why that means they can't win a presidential election. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous to blame that and to scapegoat that sort of issue, and to sort of say like, the logical fall through this and the through line is that if the Democrats want to win, they can't put anyone who's a minority or who's in some marginalized group in power. That's ridiculous to say that. And
I mean, for me, the last, I think, 4 presidencies has proved that. We had Obama, a black man. Then we had a businessman who was like a TV mogul who like ran like a TV show and like ran multiple businesses into bankruptcy, but was still like somehow a billionaire. And then we had like an 80-year-old man. And then we had someone who had led an insurrection against the U.S. government come back and win the presidency. Like, it doesn't really matter who you are. And I think like yes, identity politics to a certain degree does matter, but you cannot look at somebody and purely base them off the identity if there were also other factors like their rhetoric, their ability to communicate, their ability to like negotiate.
I think none of us are saying that that's something one should do, but what we're saying is that the American people are more than competent enough not to do that. Because of what you said, the last elections. Like, it's so evident by who has been president that people don't care so much about who they are, as they much obviously prefer like what they hear, what they're being told, what they're being sold.
Exactly. I mean, I was being called crazy by a lot of like liberals here at liberal in the sense that they're not left, they're liberal, Democrats, during election season. That what I was like, okay, we need to get someone who's going to cut through what Trump's saying, give policies that are actually going to help the American people in a way that's rhetorically sound. And then what happened in New York? Zohran Mamdani is now literally the most popular like political figure next to Trump, like across like the nation, especially because it's crazy. A New York mayoral candidate is so popular across social media and all this, and it's not because he's using social media. Like, there was this one person running for House or Senate in Arizona. Her name is Deja Fox. She also used social media, and she tried doing it, but her policies sucked. They weren't Zohran Mamdani's, who's saying that, I'm going to make sure that you guys can afford food, you guys can afford transit, you guys can afford to live in New York.
In the city you were born and raised.
Of course. Yeah. Like, I think that should be if anything, the prototype for what the Democratic Party should be going forward is someone who not only like rhetorically is able to communicate the issues and the policies that he's saying. It comes from the policies. That's why people are voting for Zohran, because they say, my life's going to get better when he gets elected.
And exactly what Ethan was saying, he's a Muslim immigrant. Like, how if we're debating over a black woman who's born in the United States could or couldn't, hold office. Right now, one of the most popular politicians in the nation wasn't born here and is of like this, identity that's been so like people in America have been taught to hate so for the past couple decades.
Yeah.
And he's literally like, he's went on television and been like, he's an anti-capitalist. Like he's an outspoken anti-capitalist. That other thing. Yeah. I have to head off now, but I'll be back for the next podcast. Thank you all so much. Enjoy the rest of the convo.
Of course.
It's interesting because a guy named Zohran Mamdani is like able to win over someone who's, does it get more institution than Andrew Cuomo?
I don't think that's possible.
Yeah, like he's quite literally just running on the fact that he's done a job before, and he's like, oh yeah, I have experience.
Not even that he lives in the city, because he talks about, I think, how he never takes the subway, which is the most New York thing. They ask him for his bodega order. He says, what was it? Egg, bacon, and cheese on a English muffin.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I'm sorry. I've been to New York probably like 5 days out of my whole life, and I think I could pretend to be more New York than Andrew Cuomo really is.
Yeah.
Like I just think it's so silly.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
And I think it's just, I really hope that for the future of the Democratic Party, what they get from this isn't that we need to use social media more. It's we need to listen to the people who are supposed to be voting for us.
Right. Like, yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much for joining us today. Hopefully that was a great second episode of the Loyola Left. See more for our Instagram and TikTok in the description, as well as a Google form in the description if you want to either appear on the podcast or if you had any disagreements with us, please let us know.
We would love to have debaters, guests, everything.
Yeah.
I mean, like that, it would be so sick. We'd love to grow this, whatever it is we're doing.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.